issues. So I guess good time to break for now. Thank you.
Our discussion session, and in our discussion session, this is a continuation for our previous discussion. Dr. Nikolai will continue discussing how to implement the roadmap in ASA.
Thank you.
And after that, at the end of this discussion panel, we will talk about a handout list, which is a part of the survey that we're supposed to do. That was distributed to everybody in the handout file, and we'll introduce that. We'll clarify some of the points if it's not clear, so that everybody would be required to give his share in filling this as maybe as introductory survey points. It's not complete, but it's part of the survey. We'll need to more details maybe after we get the consulting agent or according to that, whatever we reach at the end here, we can maybe elaborate more on that and see how we can proceed in this direction. And I would like to maybe ask Dr. Nikolai to start discussion on a continued discussion, which is a fruitful discussion about the roadmap in Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Well, what I'll do is I'll go back to the process that I suggested, and I would like for us to go to this implementation plan, and I'd like for us to go and discuss the components of it, make sure that this plan seems to be reasonable. If it is, or it needs to be changed in some location, let's go through it. So this was basically what I suggested, and the approach I recommended was establishing a steering committee. And the purpose of the steering committee is really to be decision-making and guidance to the consultant who will be producing a lot of the materials that are needed to build the final products, and also to write the product while the steering committee have to review it and comment on it. So the steering committee would be from members of this group or extended members. It has to be reasonably small, so between the committee members, they can build consensus on, because they themselves, they may have different opinions on things, and if it is a very big committee, it's difficult to build consensus. If it's 5-7 people, I think it's more manageable. So the procurement of consultants, I know that this may be a little bit of a challenge because we don't have as many consultants. We actually use that approach in SWCC, and specifically DTRI, for developing of planning documents of this type. And we use a particular consultant called A.T. Kearney, which is familiar with the topics. We certainly can go through a procurement process, but the point is that there are consultants that can do that. And that consultant, we as a steering committee the steering committee can prepare the RFP of what this consultant needs to do. And then we could approach different parties. A.T. Kearney comes to mind because we have good experience with them, but I'm sure if you have any other ideas for good consultants you may work with in the past that may be suitable for this, I think it should be open to in general, to suitable parties to do it. So that procurement of consultant would have to be something would need to happen relatively quickly, and it usually, once you tell them what you want to do, they have to come back with a proposal explaining how they're going to do it, how they're going to take us through the process. That's where the research survey is completed by the consultant. They are the ones that actually go and send all the questionnaire. Like, we have a good start, as you pointed out just a few minutes ago. There in everybody's package, there is a questionnaire already as a starting point. I think it's an excellent starting point. And consultant can review it, the steering committee can review it, final questionnaire, and then the consultant would go and we will make a list collectively who this goes to, and then it is sent. Those people will be given time. The consultant has to follow up with everybody, make sure they get the responses, and then summarize it into teams, then are brought into the steering committee to decide if those teams are the right teams or maybe they missed something. The consultant doesn't need to know everything about everything. They don't need to be an expert in desalination. They would have to understand it, but the steering committee is the one that steers them one direction or another. And they may add or remove tasks or lump them together if they think, or if some task is very important and the steering committee believes nobody's asking for it, but it is important, then the steering committee has the prerogative to add it. Or remove a task if they believe it's not needed. So the research needs survey follows after that. So the purpose of the survey is really to establish the topics. I showed you a list of topics, but those are my topics. It should be done based on the survey, because we need to have input not only from experts in desalination, but also energy sector, water sector, basically the water distribution. Everybody has to contribute because they have their own views and needs. And my needs are needs of a desalination expert, while other people that are consumers of that product that we're going to create, they may have a different angle or a different view. We certainly don't want to miss an angle or view. We're creating this map for our industry here in Saudi, so we need to keep all the industry stakeholders incorporated in the process, so nobody's left behind, and nobody comes back and says, oh yeah, this doesn't apply to me because I've never been asked or I've never been involved in it. We want to have a document which the industry embraces and says, yes, this is a good product. Not only us, but the entire industry at large says, yes, this is a valuable product. They ask me what I think. I see they incorporated it, and I think it's valuable to me. So that's why the research needs survey is very important to reach out to a big group of people. As I mentioned in the other two cases, we actually reached to over 1,000 people that were members of the subscribing committee, but of the subscribers of Water Research Foundation. But we don't have to limit ourselves. There was an initial list that was created in the documents that were prepared by Dr. Al-Berudi. But that list could be expanded. All of us, or the steering committee at least as a minimum, has to have a blessing on who we should approach. Make sure we don't leave anybody behind. Also, we have to approach people that fund this type of things. One of the sources we have to approach is sources of money for potential research, because it's good to hear what they want and what they have heard of, what they believe is a profitable investment on their side. They will look at it in a completely different angle than a water supply company or a desalination production company, but all angles are important. We need to understand what the industry's expectations are. So I think it's a critical component, and it's a lot of work. It is, you have to knock on a lot of doors, make sure people submit the surveys, you process them, follow up with questions. Sometimes they didn't understand the question. You want to make sure you're available to explain what you had in mind. So that's an effort that requires somebody taking care of it on a daily basis until it is complete. And then the second is really to take the survey. Then the steering committee looks at the results and says, okay, there are clear 10 teams, so 10 or 12 or whatever the number ends up to be. So how do we, now Mr. Consultant, go to do literature review, look at what is known on the topic, ask the members of the steering committee, what is the state of, what is the status, the state of science on those topics. So that's where it goes in that report. So everybody is aware of, we know the topics now, what is the best known at this point, and what is missing. Those are the two things that this report does. What's the state of science and knowledge, first, and second, what is it that we don't know and we need? Those are the two things we need to understand, and that will be done in this report. And then after that, we will go into the workshop based on what was established. I'll go individually step by step, so we could start kind of brainstorming on the individual steps. Number one is selecting a committee, and that would be, based on the management of this group, something that we can either volunteer for or, depending on how you'd like to do it. But it's good to be not more than 7 members, just because it's easier to build a consensus that way. But if you think it's 9 members, that's something that it's up to you. You have certainly your own experiences of what you think is optimal. That's what we usually use in the States, 5 to 7, but it doesn't need to be. It's not a magic number by any means. It's not like the Supreme Court discussion in the U.S. We're not packing the court. As we, I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm talking about in the States with our elections, but. Okay, 6. Yeah, it has to be it has to be an odd number. So there is a consensus. If we have to vote on a topic, there is a majority established that way.
There is a chairman, so what side he is in, then it's go.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's like our U.S. Congress. The chairman has two votes.
No, actually it's one vote, but if.
Yeah, if it's a split 3-3, his vote basically decides which way do we go. Okay, I see. Yeah, that's how it is in U.S. Congress. Yeah, the person presiding the Congress, which is the VP of the country in the U.S., is the swing. We call it swing vote. Swing meaning it swings the decision this way or that way. Here's the swing vote. Yeah, that can work as well. I mean, we could have 6 plus the chairman being the 7th swing vote on anything if we'd like to. So I think 7 is good. We could certainly go more, but I would say 7 probably is optimum. So it has to be a diverse group, meaning not only scientists. It has to have like a mix of scientists, practitioners, industry, like for example, local content industry, this type of person, policymakers from the ministries that are looking at from a policy perspective. So we don't miss anything that is important to the bigger, because this committee represents the industry, as to say. So I guess on this, the chairman has to decide who they are, or you could approach it and ask people to volunteer, or whichever way you think is the right way to do it. But it's good to establish that, because that committee then is expected to, so it could be, as I said, it's good to be mixed. I added investors because in the States, the people with money are important. As you know, they're important in any country, I think. But they are important because we want to keep them along with us. So when the time comes in for them to open their purse, they don't say, oh, I don't know anything about this. Nobody asked me. You're coming now with this list of projects and you want me to fund it. Well, come along. Tell us what you think is important or what you think is, because they'll look at it, important to them is profitable, which is a completely different angle, but it has to be. Because otherwise, we don't want to do something that makes no sense for the industry. And we want to build local industry and local content. So, and whatever we do has to be attractive to them as well if we want to build local. So I think it's good to think about that if you'd like to include them. But as you can see, there are 4, 2 of each plus 1 maybe. It will be something that works, and it could be other type of people as well. So the key functions, the way I define them, are first to prepare to procure the consultant. So what this steering committee would do is one of the committee will volunteer to put a request for proposal, and I can help with that because I've been through that process before for consultant. I can put that together, for example. And then steering committee has to review it, add, remove, adjust, and then that document would have to go to several consultants, ask them for a price and offer a description of the proposed scope that they will do. That usually takes about a month to 2 months maximum. So once we have that consultant on board, they would have to then take the role of doing the survey. That's the very first thing they have to deal with. They have to go out and submit the survey, eventually use the document that was prepared and distributed, expand it, enhance it. The steering committee has to look at it, maybe add extra for what goes out. And then based on that, they will collect all the information. They have to chase all the participants. Now, one question becomes important is who we need to decide, and the steering committee as a minimum has to make that decision, but it could be done through a wider group, through all of us. Who goes on that list, distribution list for the survey? As I mentioned, the more the better, and it's good to be a diverse group of people, not only scientists, not only practitioners or consultants or water company. Everybody has to be included. It's good. Yeah, manufacturers of equipment, investors, all of them have their views. Sorry? Yeah, yeah. So it's good to, so I think that's a list. My recommendation is, we already have initial list that was prepared and included in the package, and those are the obvious participants, like the ministry and others, which are National Water Company, SWCC. They're the obvious participants. But probably all of us have to take another look at the list and maybe add names. And so I would recommend Mr. X, Y, and Z, and then circulate that extended list to all of us, and at least the steering committee then has to look at the entire list and say, okay, let's go with this, people. Sure, sure.
Before that, we could have questionnaire that from one of us to roadmap and we could have a questionnaire from them. Can you get a questionnaire from them? From the consultant?
Oh yeah, yeah, a consultant will prepare a questionnaire, but there's already an initial questionnaire that was prepared here and included in the document. Yeah.
Benchmark.
Yeah, we'll, I mean, I can send you the questionnaire that we used in the States, of course. And what I've seen in your document, there are many similarities. So we could certainly have the consultant compile both. And at the same time, also the steering committee would look at that questionnaire and say, yeah, you have to add this, this, and this issue as well, because we want to be more encompassing. Plus, I think at the end of the day, all of us as a group can take a look at the questionnaire before it is approved. But ultimately, it's good to be approved by us before it goes out.
As I mentioned, we have to prove the questionnaire. And a lot
Yeah.
of that answers the handouts. First, we have to update. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good start. I mean, this questionnaire is a very good start. I think once we have the consultant on board, we'll give him this and say, well, this is a good starting point. I will give him, for example, what we've done.
I'm looking for him.
I will take you a little bit back for your presentation. Can you go to the one you listed, the kind of KPIs, the one?
Oh, the KPI ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of KPIs you mentioned.
Let me see.
Just one point. We want this as a panel, discussion panel, rather than just a lecture given by Dr. Nikolai. So we want to stop him at any time and give a question. And
Yes.
please answer this and
Yeah.
anything related to
Sure.
our case A roadmap expected.
Yeah.
That's what we want this to be, just mainly.
Yeah, it's a discussion. It's
Yeah.
not just me doing lecture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a discussion.
Yeah, this is the KPIs that I've identified as initial list. But again, this is something that we'll build as a consensus. I mean, we can add or remove or merge. That's certainly the case.
Well, based on your experience, first I have my what we call my opinions. Policy is not included, and also the capacity building is not included.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, basically, I have included local content, but that's more to production,
Yeah.
not as education and
Yeah,
bringing
because
the staff.
that is very important because of what we call the roadmap
Yeah.
for the third one is one of my colleagues, I think he's left, but he noticed that also transportation is one of the transporting the water.
You mean conveyance? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as you know, maybe that's a huge.
Yeah, I'll write them here, so we can use this, and then I can add it after we finish. Let me start writing this ideas here on the board.
Okay. Policy.
Okay.
Capacity building. I would say not convey, because convey is maybe people will think network. So it's just transport.
Transmission.
Transmission.
Water transmission.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's I mean the major thing, not the.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
And my notes, which is another note, which is maybe most of these may be constraints, okay? Such as, for example, 60%, or it's kind of constraints. So,
Yeah, I mean, this is basically a target. I wouldn't call it a constraint, but it's a target. So for example, if I have a project that somebody proposed, and let's say I have two projects, and I have one amount of money, and I'm picking between A and B project, I will look at those parameters and say, okay, if I have to make a checklist against each project, which project gives me more checks? Yeah, like one project could be, let's say, 25% savings on cost of water. The other one may be giving me 30. So I'll give a check to 30 because both of them achieve 25. Or I get a project that only gives me 10% improvement. I'll say, no, I'm not giving you a check because you didn't meet this criteria. So it's kind of a criterion for excellence, is to say, to perform.
okay. And as you know, maybe if you want to take more minerals of maybe brine, maybe more cost than a one who's going to do only desalination.
That is correct.
Then we need to introduce what we call governance, kind of one of the major things, which is how much is the cost per cubic meter?
Yeah. Well, this basically is, yeah, absolutely correct. I mean, when I call cost of desalinated water, that's basically cost of cubic meter. It's expressed usually in dollars or reals per.
Because 25% usually maybe only to the conventional, I would say, system. But if you mix more zero liquid discharge,
Yeah.
brine, maybe less than 60%, but in the same time maybe use more energy or less energy.
Yeah.
So, but that's if you mix overall cost, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, because he will sell that
Right. Yeah.
minerals and produce more energy, but actually he will make even maybe zero.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's the idea. I mean, like for example, what we're looking at in the projects that we're discussing with SABIC and Petrokemia, we're saying, okay, we'll produce this much brine for you and sell it at this market price. And by the way, we do have also this much water, drinking water, or industrial. You could use it for industrial purposes, and we could sell that to you for this price, conventional water cost. So when you look at the cost of water, we could look at it that way, but we also could look at it, okay, well, we can give you the water for zero as a sweetener to buy the brine. So, that type of approach, at the end, it depends on how you, if you have profit at the end of the day. Like, for example, if you are producing the brine at $40 reals, and you're selling it at 48, you have this 8 reals of profit. That profit can actually be allocated to the drinking water cost, and you could say, hey, the cost of water is zero.
Zero, exactly. Yeah.
So this, in this case, you will have a dramatic reduction. Like if the conventional cost of water is $1 per cubic meter, an average, then I'm getting my cost of water to zero here, and it doesn't, and I'm not penalizing anybody because I'm making money from sales of a product. So therefore, it's not like I'm asking this, zero doesn't come because I'm going into your pocket or the pocket of the user of the water.
It's kind of my product is paid for that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thinking, and from that perspective, for example, a technology that can do that, that will certainly count against that box big time. Because if it's $1 and I know I can produce brine, sell it, and create extra revenue that can defray some or all of my drinking water costs, I can claim reduction of the drinking water cost because that's what will be at the end. You said you have to look at it holistically.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying to put this in kind of one criteria.
Yeah, we could call it holistic cost of water, which means holistic means it includes everything. Yeah.
I think it's more important than 25% reduction, and we have to look at kind of how does the box wait.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a holistic review. Okay.
Yeah, we'll call it holistic cost of water. That includes everything, all components of the water. It may include also transportation, because certain things may be cheaper if you do them on site versus you do them off site. Those kinds of things. Yeah, holistic means everything. If I am a customer and I'm buying water from you, what I care about is on my point, when I turn on my water meter or my water tap, what is the water that comes out of this tap? What does it cost me? I don't particularly care if you saved on chemicals, if you sold brine. What I care about is how much you're charging me for this. Yeah, I care about how much it costs me. That's the holistic cost. That would include transportation, include everything, because I'm paying water at my tap. So I think you're right. That's holistic. That means everything included. We can't really carve out things, because we could make something artificially cheap at the expense of something else, and then the whole picture doesn't work.
We have experience with that, with IWB.
Yeah, that is the case.
They take the cost in electricity more than the cost of the water. So it looks...
Playing with numbers. Yeah. And that should not be the case. That's why I agree with you. It's good to specify that we're talking holistic. There is no Mickey Mouse stuff where you could take first year cost of water, the second year. No.
Or cross subsidies or whatever.
Yeah, it has to be the whole thing. When I'm a customer, when I'm paying what comes out of my spigot there, out of my tap, how much would that cost me in real dollars? I don't care how you move the money, first year, second year, third year. I want you to know. Yeah, so I think you're right. We should change this text, and I will. I will make modification and distribute it.
And the second one, do we look at mega projects or small projects?
In general, mega and small projects would both be included, although you're absolutely right. The threshold of this is basically for any project, but you're absolutely right that a big project is always more efficient than small project. That is the case. And that is mainly because just the simple physics law that says that in any centrifugal pump, efficiency of the pump is proportional to flow and reversely proportional to pressure. So for the same pressure, the bigger flow, the more efficient the pump is. So that, from that perspective, when you have a big facility with big pumps, by default, that facility will be more efficient than the one with the small pumps. So when I say 2 kilowatt hours per cubic meter, it is mainly...
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And, like for example, we're currently developing with in joint venture with a company in France, the chief designer of the Ferrari engines, motor engines, as you know who Ferrari is. We're borrowing technology experience from him and from Ferrari's designs to develop energy recovery device, which is more simple, used for desalination, which is more simple and at the same time is more efficient than conventional water. And that device, based on our testing, we are already testing the prototype, shows us that just for the desalination part, not for the entire plant, just for the desalination plant, we are about 1.8 kilowatt hours. So this would be considered to me an achievement, because when you look at a conventional desalination plant, we will be somewhere in about 2.8 to 3.2 for the RO. And then for the plant as a whole, it will be about 3.5 to 4. When we include intake, when we include discharge, pumping, it will be extra. But this is only focusing on the actual separation of salt from water, including energy recovery. So I think specific means energy that is spent to produce to separate the water from the salt, divided by the volume of that water that we produced. It's a good target. I would say it is an ambitious target, but is it achievable? It is. Theoretical minimum is for seawater, in our seawaters, in this salinity. Theoretical minimum will be 1.64 kilowatt hours. So we are certainly not going to, theoretical minimum meaning ideal world, where there is no friction, there are no losses. We obviously cannot get to that. But if we could get to 2, that's pretty close.
How much the salinity when you are saying 1.6?
1.64 is for salinity of 44 ppt. Yeah.
Okay, is this going to be applied for RO and thermal?
It will be applied to any desal technology. It doesn't need to be thermal RO, or it could be non-RO technology.
So these pump better
You highlight what water-wise.
Sorry?
Water-wise technology.
Oh yeah,
You
well,
have to listen to clear to them.
yeah, they actually are measuring 1.86 right now. Yeah, what Dr. Al-Ahmadi said is it can be applied to any technology, including technologies that are using natural sources of energy. We're working currently with a Norwegian company called Waterize, and what they're using is they do have an RO component, RO system, which is actually submerged in water at about 300 to 400 meters. And they're using the natural water column pressure to overcome the osmotic pressure that's needed to produce desalinated water. And they do currently test, they've been testing for 3 months in Norway, where the pilot unit was created. And the reason why we first tested there is because they're close to the manufacturers. If something goes wrong, we don't have to fly them back and forth to Saudi. But, so we're testing for 3 months there. What's interesting is, and they do have electrical meter. They measure all the electricity needed for it, because once you submerge it, you produce water, you have to pump it up to the surface to be useful. The power meter shows 1.86 kilowatt hour. That's the total amount of energy they use to produce water. So is that possible? The answer is yes. For example, if you use the natural source of the pressure of the ocean water, you have harvesting benefit, which nature gave you free. So that is one way to do it. So when I say technology, it means any technology, any method, as long as you can bring, and you have to produce the same product, right? It has to be drinking water, drinkable, meeting the standards and regulations. As long as you make a product that's a drinkable commercial product, that's what counts.
If we integrate this one, hybrid form with wind power,
Yeah, technically this is a green power. It's just natural power. It's just natural pressure that exists. But it could be green power. It could be some kind of other source. As I mentioned about the reactor, rubidium reactor, we're taking rubidium that was extracted from the brine. The amount of rubidium needed for 1 year is about the size of a pencil like this, a little bit more. That's all you need to produce 15 megawatts, 24 hours a day, 365 days. This is 15 megawatts non-stop, 24 hours a day. The rubidium piece is the size of a pencil.
How big is the plant?
The plant is the size of it is the size of this picture. Yeah, actually, this is hard, and I don't want this to be repeated because I have to get you've seen the movie with the Men in Black, where I have to put it so you can forget it. But basically, it is a device that was designed specifically for a special U.S. force called Phantom Force. That means force that's undetectable. It is used in their amphibious vehicles that carry specialists in the water, and the devices they use cannot leave any signature, heat signature, noise signature. So this thing is not, you would not hear it. It has no noise, it has no heat emissions, nothing. So it is like a natural source. It would look like a well or something like that. That's the idea. So that's why it was created like that. It has no radioactive signature.
Yeah.
The size of it actually in the amphibious vehicle is the size of a briefcase. The size that they did show us is about this size. So the point, and that produces 15 megawatts per day, 24 hours a day. And all it uses, this thing can stay in the water for 1 year, and it uses this much rubidium. This much rubidium at the moment costs $6 million. It's expensive. A pen of rubidium is a $6 million pen. Now, we were looking at it with the technologists that we know. We said, okay, we could make it for $1 million. They said, great, we'll give you the technology, you give us the pen. That tells us the technology of how you can extract the brine. Because this amphibious vehicle is in the seawater. They can produce the brine, they can produce the rubidium, and they can stay there forever. So the point is that this is a very beneficial exchange. And it is extremely interesting because when you do the math and say, okay, how much 15 megawatts can produce? Today, it can produce 100,000, this is 100,000 cubic meters a day plant. 100,000 cubic meters a day plant consumes about 15 megawatts at present, hourly. So if you think about how much brine, how much rubidium is in the brine, it is actually twice that amount. You have 2 pencils you can extract per year. So that means that you could run your entire desal plant on rubidium extracted from your brine, and you could produce another pen for another 50 megawatts. Imagine how much value is there in a brine, which today we dump right back into the ocean.
Then we close our wells, right?
Well, then we have control. Then we can have control of our future. That's what we have. And we talk with
Yes.
The lady that is the national security advisor, read the CIA, was there checking Dr. Al-Moudi out a couple of weeks ago. Because she said, well, we're giving you this technology. She lied. But basically the point is, yes, these technologies exist. They have been developed mainly for the U.S. military intelligence services, but they're willing to give it to us as long as we have fair trade. And we have something to trade with. The point is, you're sitting on huge value. You could turn all these desal plants to be zero carbon footprint that way. Because you're not taking any electricity from anything else but your own brine. That is really so beautiful. I think if somebody's talking about renewable, that is renewable. And it's a cold fusion process. It's not a nuclear-based process. So there is no residual, yeah, from a safety perspective. Yeah, that's why they said, yeah, you cannot make an atomic bomb out of it. We'll give it to you. That's okay.
Is it in all the seas that you can extract this amount of rubidium?
Yeah, every ocean water. You basically, well, as I said, this is for our ocean waters, for 44 ppt. If you're in another ocean, you may not be able to take 2 pencils, you'll take a pencil and a half. But in any case, you'll have a pencil as a minimum. So you need at least 22,000 to take a pencil. Okay, and we have 44, so we have 2 pencils in our waters.
Should we mention the type of desalination that we are looking at, either reverse osmosis or forward osmosis or MSF?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're leaving to the researcher, to the scientists, to tell us how they get here. We're not saying you should use forward, reverse osmosis, hydraulic gradient, or pressure retardant osmosis for differential. Mr. Scientists, you're open. Open your mind and do whatever you can do. What I care about is the water to meet the water quality requirement and your total energy to be less than this number. Whatever you come up with, it counts. Okay. I mean, I think this is how we want to define it. Not say it should be reverse osmosis, it should be forward osmosis or this or that. Let the scientists be creative. We just established the performance.
Here, the type of energy that we were not included, for example, the thermal energy is different than electrical. Electrical come originally from the thermal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, we cannot cheat on saying, okay, well, this is 2 kilowatt hours of electrical energy. This is all included energy. We cannot say, oh yeah, we have a waste heat which costs nothing. That kind of stuff is cheating. We're talking about total earned energy. If we're using a mix of thermal and electrical, that's fine. If we're using a mix of renewable and electrical, that's fine as well. I mean, at the end of the day, what matters is the total energy demand. Not saying, oh yeah, this is a waste product. If somebody sells it to you for $0, sure, then you could say, okay, I could buy, waste for $0 from somebody, and then I can count.
But it's still kilowatt hours.
Yeah, it is still kilowatt hours. Even if it's thermal energy, you can convert it to kilowatt hours. It doesn't matter. But then we're talking about all-inclusive energy to produce fresh water from with desalination. And desalination, by definition, means anything: thermal, non-thermal, gradient, anything you could come up with, as long as you can separate the water from the salt. It's not limited by technology. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but that's what we are for. I mean, scientists have to look at it. That's why I call it disruptive technology. It's not just tweaking the efficiency of the pump. You have to come up with something completely different. So that's what we want to invest really in. The disruptive is, that's how we can shine, as to say, as a Saudi Arabia, because people say, okay, now they've done something nobody else has done. They've broken the barrier of energy, they've broken the barrier of cost, but not by the Mickey Mouse stuff where you take from the first year cost and put it on the back end. No financial bullshit. We have to be scientifically looking at it in a fair assessment. Chemical use by 50%, what that means is, we use a lot of chemicals, as you know. We use them for pre-treatment, for chlorination, for post-treatment. For polishing. For polishing, yeah, and for anti-scaling and other purposes. And currently, they are, a waste at the end of the day, and they end up in our discharges. Chemicals are used in discharge, so they ultimately pollute the environment. And the question is, how can we get rid of them? Can we come up with technologies which don't need them?
Maybe we can deal with this one by physical method. Physical method
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the goal here is to say, okay, If I'm using a chemical, first, can I come up with the same result, same pretreatment effort, same pretreatment result without using chlorine? Can I use something else that's cheaper or less in quantity? And second answer is, can I just use a technology which doesn't use any chemicals? Like, for example, as I mentioned to you, one consideration was about the ozonation. Like people say, okay, I have to deal by biofouling by, having this pretreatment, that pretreatment, the other pretreatment. One gentleman stood up and said, okay, well, can we just burn everything? Why do we have to go from 5 stages, dissolve air flotation, coagulation, filtration? Well, let's burn all the bugs and let's burn all the organics in the water. There's nothing left. So that's a pretreatment. There's nothing to
If you can.
Yeah, if you can, and if you can do it cost effectively, it's a fair approach.
The problem for the ozone is the ozone generator actually. It's quite energy consuming generator.
Well, that is the case. In this particular case, this particular gentleman, who came from also the one of the research labs, what he proposes to use is completely different, out of the box ozonator, which is used as a detonation device to neutron bombs. Compared to conventional ozone generation units, which I'm sure you've seen, they look like a long tube and an electrical discharge, which happens in the atmosphere. 10,000 volts of electrical discharge creates ozone from oxygen. That's what the conventional ozonation units do. What this device is, and it's used to start neutron reaction in neutron bombs, that's the application of it. But it creates, rather than creating a single discharge in one direction, it creates a bulk of 10,000 volt discharges in all directions. So the discharge doesn't look like a single shoot. It looks like a big bulk. And that creates tremendously much more ozone from the same electrical discharge. So it's completely different application, but in this case used for this can actually reduce the energy to produce ozone at about 5 times. And it becomes interesting. So, like we were talking about bromine. I talked to a gentleman today. He said, well, we could actually use this device to produce bromine without all the multiple steps that currently industry uses. So I said, sure, let's come and test it. So the point is, this is the thinking. It came from completely different industry to begin neutron reaction and neutron bomb. But he looked at it and said, shoot, I have this problem and I have this solution. I'm creating 5 times, 6 times more ozone by this device than the conventional device. Well, let's turn this device into an ozonator rather than being an initiator to a bomb. So that is the thinking we need. That's what I call disruptive. You look at something and say, shoot, I can use this for a completely different thing.
Can we use our specialty process in innovation for our roadmap?
Absolutely, yeah. I think this will be a great opportunity to do it. We're planning, by the way, on having a conference in desalination innovation in October of this year, and we'll actually bring the. Sorry, next year. October is gone. It's a Halloween time. We're at the end of Halloween. We're running out of October tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, realistically, those are the types of things that we wanted to. As this road, I mean, we could have a session on the roadmap or a workshop on the roadmap where we could say, here are our ideas. Let's get people to come in from international industry, say, hey, I think this could work or that could work. The more people, the more people are involved, as people say about ideas. If I have one apple and you have one apple and we exchange it, we still have one apple. If you have one idea and I have one idea, exchange it, each of us has 2 ideas. So that's certainly the benefit.
We'll include it then.
Absolutely. I think we probably can consider a workshop.
He wasn't here. Yeah.
So we discussed about recovery. Recovery is all about producing more with less. That's the idea. How can we produce more water with less?
I would like from our people if they have any input regarding this line.
Yeah, any additional points that we may have missed, any additional criteria, like the ones that we listed here, we could certainly list them and add them to the criteria.
Yeah, we suggest about we can. This is what you're talking about, the production side. We can add the transmission side.
Yeah. I think water transmission is certainly very important. We haven't added this water transmission.
For the water
Innovation.
Huh?
Research.
Water forum. Water forum.
Yeah.
Yeah. When will be that? Yeah. Did you decide about the date?
Next year. Yeah, we postpone.
Yeah, then it's one until April. April.
We have, we were talking about international specialty conference innovation will be held in October next year.
Where?
Next year. In
Where?
Jubail. Okay, and we are
No,
people
innovation
organizing this
design.
with
You want to
IDA.
organize it?
Yeah, with
Yeah.
IDA.
But when?
In October next year.
Dr. Al-Muni, the
That
innovation
will be too
design
late
will be here.
to يعني gather information and make the roadmap. Huh?
I think at the end we have a project. Maybe we can share it with the people.
Yeah, we could conduct
Yeah, but
a
that's
survey. like that.
sharing the product, yes. Yes. That would be-
I think sharing and taking the opinions.
Yeah, we could have like a workshop and saying, hey, here's the topics we identified. Anybody else with any ideas on the
يعني
topics?
في مهندس ناصر عنده مداخلة يبغى يدخل معنا. فرصة طيبة إنه احنا نسمع منه.
You wanted to join? Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. All right.
مش كده بس ساعدته بالسؤال كان هو شرح.
Yeah, I think the more inclusive we are, the better. I think having more input is always a good thing in creation of this document, because people have different views on this.
I agree with you.
Fresh mind is always a very valuable approach.
دكتور ناصر تسمعني؟
Yeah, I think at the end we want to create a map that everybody's familiar with. They vote into it, they accepted it, they contributed to it.
دكتور ناصر زمانك انت من
It's not an issue we're planning to having here.
أنا
The bright idea is in Jubail. Yes, in Jubail.
يسمعونك يا دكتور ناصر.
إيه مسموع.
حياك يا
السلام
مرحبا.
عليكم جميعا.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Sorry that I missed being with you.
Yeah. Can you see everything we were?
Control. Yeah. Everything was it.
Were you able to see everything that we've shown so far? Can you?
Yes, I've been following up. Unfortunately, I could not ask of the microphone restrictions.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we could certainly make all the presentations available as well to everybody. I mean, I did send it to you. If you could distribute it, sure.
Am I coming here to you there?
تفضل يا دكتور ناصر. تفضل مداخلتك.
أيوة. Regarding analytics, I suggest that we use it as an initial system for collecting the disruptive technologies. My few comments for future, maybe fine-tuning of analytics. It seems that metrics are discrete and everyone is treated differently, etc. But maybe we need to develop relative ways of importance to screen technologies, because some of them may be overlapping and some of them can be standalone. So I suggest that we think of a weighting system for selecting the technology, because in the final stages when we want to select technologies, then the metrics as standalone cannot be helped, because we need to have a relative weight system. My other point is that most of the metrics are actually based on economics. However, I think the strategic dimension, which cannot be always evaluated based on economic grounds, should be part of IT. The reason I'm saying this, because, for example, with the pandemic that we have been seeing, there are issues related to the supply chain that could be very detrimental to the process of desalination. So I suggest we also have a strategic dimensions, including, for example, materials availability. I know that we have touched on the local content, one of the metrics, but that is purely again economics. So I think we should also have a dimension in our research that focuses on not only economic metrics, but strategic metrics. I remember during one of the crises that we went through in this country, there were issues that are of strategic great importance that probably cannot be justified with economic grounds. Again, my comments are food for thought for future sessions, not necessarily for today. But
Yeah.
also when we talk about technologies, I'm thinking the future when we are given proposals for disruptive technologies and we are faced with decisions to evaluate. Again, from experience in managing the R&D board when I was in the industry, it was very useful for us to classify the research into, for example, purely in-house research or purely in-clinic research. But also there are research areas that are going to be much more beneficial for us if we collaborate and keep them where they are. Some of them are maybe sort of influence only without any financial involvement. So I think this dimension should be put in the parking lot for future discussion. And I also second the point on transportation, because we're working, our discussion, we're focusing on the production side of the desalination, but also desalination production is only one element of the total supply chain. So in summary, the metrics are focused on economics. It suggest that we add a strategic dimension to them, and also think of a way of a weighting system for the proposal, especially when we look at some of the metrics that overlap. For example, using the cost of desalination per meter overlaps with reducing the energy intensity. Is an overlap here of the solution to that is to have a weighting system. So we have relative weights for
the criteria. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. We could certainly agree on a system for criteria weight. So as we have like 12 or 14 criteria, we would like to make sure that if we want to give a different criteria on price versus energy versus local content, what is more important or less important to us, we certainly can give it a different weight factor on each of those criteria. They don't have to be all 100% important. So, and then we could score a project based on this multiple matrix of weights on the individual factors. So yeah, I think that's a good idea, and the steering committee then can decide how much weight we give to each of those components as an overall, out of 100%, what percentage we'll assign to each of those. Okay, I think the suggestions are fine. I think a weighting system will be helpful. And also, as we distribute all these presentations that I'm showing you, I think as a follow-up, each of you can come back and forward to you all any other comments. Like, for example, you could come to page 6 and say, hey, on page 6 where you're discussing technologies, please add X, Y, and Z. And it's good at this point, it's input. Input is valuable, and I think everybody is welcome to provide any additional information that comes to mind.
Thank you very much. What I want to say that think out of the box, and we think about why just one standard. We are thinking about we may have variety in standards. For example, most of the water which we are producing from desalination plants is going not only for actually drinking water purposes. It's going sometimes even for farms, even sometimes for some industrial areas.
Yeah.
I've been practice with Modern, for example. They are having their own plants, desalination plants, and they are producing the water for the factories which they are not requiring a good quality of water, and they still desalinate it and wasted the energy. And so why one standard? This is,
I mean, it's as far as standard goes.
Because if we play with the standards, we will play with the prices.
There's really no one standard here. I mean, when we say cost of desalinated water production, for example, if in this case, let's say if a conventional cost of water produced for municipal, let's say SWC produces cost market-wise $1 per cubic meter. If, for example, you have a technology that fits a particular customer, and and they're willing to pay, or they pay currently $1 because that's the market, but you could produce it for 60 cents. I mean, this will be counted against this 25% reduction because you're achieving it. It doesn't need to be for municipal. As long as you could achieve this value for the customer, I agree. What matters is against the water quality that you have, what their current, the status quo, the current situation is what we measure against. Like if today they're buying water from SWIC at $1 per cubic meter, and you can come up with technology where this industry can be buying it at 60 cents, absolutely. I think that meets the 25% cost reduction. It doesn't say drinking water cost, any cost that you're up against. I mean, I think the measure here is to reduce cost against the status quo, against the existing cost.
Or we introduce what we call fit to purpose.
Fit for purpose water. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what you're referring to. I mean, this is fit for purpose water, and that fit for purpose certainly would have the benefit of being cheaper, and sometimes it's expensive.
Fit for purpose, for example, we can produce water that is, TDS is about 1,000 for agriculture.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's a good point. Fit for purpose, maybe it's another criteria that maybe will be introduced for.
The way I look at it is, I mean, when you're comparing, you have to use as a comparison the current status. Like, for example, if currently the agricultural water that people get for irrigation is X dollars, is your technology reducing that at least 20%, 25% below X for the same water? It could be irrigation water, it could be industrial water, it could be drinking water. So it doesn't, this 25% target is really to push you towards a technology that makes a major improvement versus a technology that incrementally improves. So when we are saying 25% of desalinated water, that is against the particular water that you're comparing. If it is industrial water, okay, maybe industrial water cost is 80 cents. So we'll be comparing 25% against that 80 cents. So it depends on who the customer is, what water they use as a base, and that's where against that is where we compare.
So but the reason I think the note is maybe an important thing. Maybe we aren't finding a new customer today. They are not using the water because of the cost.
Cost is too high.
So that's why it said fit to purpose. Maybe we'll introduce agriculture for desalination.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually a lot of people do that. We do that in the States. Spain does it. All the Mediterranean countries like Cyprus, in Malta. I mean, all their irrigation water that they produce, vegetables and fruits, is almost 100% desal. So yeah, absolutely.
Additionally, for what said now, actually, if you think about the transmission, some people, they get the water. It's like a game, to be or not to be. If we don't achieve the right price for the water for those people, we will not send them.
They won't be customers.
This is the problem. We have many people in villages. They don't get the access for purified water. They are using sometimes very low, standards water and low quality because the government couldn't achieve to reach to the price which is actually covering
acceptable to them. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, that is, I agree. I mean, in general, this target, as long as we produce, like if we're talking drinking water in this case, I mean, the target of reducing price to 25% will make, or more, will make a lot of desalined water very, very, you know, available for more people, because I mean, there may be 10% where the threshold of pain, as to say, is maybe 10% from where we are. But if we can reduce it below that threshold of pain, it could be 10%, it could be 25, it could be 35, or maybe 50. That is difficult to say, but I mean, at the end of the day, those are criteria to compare one technology against the other. You know, if we have two technologies and we have one box of money, where this money goes, to technology A or B, I mean, those are the criteria we use. If we're talking about two technologies that are producing different qualities of water, then we still can apply the 25% against the existing reference. Like, so if it is drinking water, we'll be applying against the drinking water, 25% against this drinking water price. If it's irrigation water, that will be against what is the current market value for irrigation water for this particular customer or this particular system. I mean, fit for purpose is to produce particular quality water that meets particular customers' needs. And I would think, I'm not sure how do you apply that as a criterion. I mean, I put this as a cost reduction against whatever water you're referring to. If it's an industrial, you'll have a different measure. If it's, yes?
It could be under like desalination economic.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the way we look at it is a market. Okay, an agricultural market is this.
Yeah.
Are you achieving? And
so should we put it in the criteria, one of them?
what we could do is put a criterion, are we meeting you know, the market value of water in different sectors? So we could say, okay, market value of water in agriculture sectors, let's say 30 cents per cubic meter. Is your technology meeting that market value? Yeah. If your main user is the agriculture. If it's not, it's not relevant, but if it is, so we could have that criterion in saying meeting the market value of water in the customer.
Sectors, yeah, customer, yeah.
Yeah, we could add that.
The number 1 and number 4.
Yeah, I think it's that one. They usually put it like a GDP contributions, put in the purpose, or return of the economy. And
yeah, if somebody developed a technology to produce water for agriculture, is that technology meeting the current market value for agricultural water? Because if it's still too expensive, agriculture guys are not going to buy it. They'll say, yeah, it's too expensive. But if we're meeting that, they'll say, yeah, sure, let's develop this. It will have huge value. I agree, that's a very good criterion to meet the market
We
value.
already have different standards now. We are, you know, actually made new standards for agriculture, for industrial, which we are now actually you know, finalizing now.
Yeah.
So we have different variety of standards, so we can use them also to share with them for the.
I mean, that will be, standards will be basically the market value. So market value will vary.
Market value.
But market value is what the farmer pays today for water. That's the market value. You know, if you can meet that, your technology is great. If you're not,
usually they pay in around between 30 halala to something about 50 halala.
let's say 10 to 15 cents, 10 to 12 cents, something in that range.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's it. What it is. I mean, if your technology can produce water for 10 to 12 cents, you're a winner.
That's why, no, actually.
That is suitable for agriculture.
But
it doesn't need to be drinking.
Aziz, Dr. Abdulaziz is not here, but that's what his main research what, of how, when is the farmer can make money based on the price of water.
Okay.
Which is
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that is a very important decision, because you may improve the water a little bit, cost a little bit, but if it still doesn't meet the market, you have no product to sell in the market, right? So that's your point.
But if you grow grapes for wineries, maybe even if
Yeah,
the cost
maybe
of
you'll
water
switch to-
expensive, it's still you are
That's
making
true.
money.
Yeah, if you can create a more valuable product from this water, you can
do something else.
All right, you going to number 4, increasing a recovery 60%.
Yeah.
The material cost will get increased, like a membrane cost and the pressures and
Sure.
cost.
Well, I mean, that is important, but it's also important to consider that if you are expending, and this is towards answering the question, do you expand existing plant or you build a brand new plant? Like, for example, if I need, let's say I have 30% recovery today out of the seawater that I'm taking. I produce 30%. Let's say I'm taking 100,000, I'm producing 30,000 cubic meters a day. This is 30% recovery. Then tomorrow I need 60,000. So how do I get this extra 30,000? One way is that I improve the RO system recovery, double it, and I get it. The other option is to build a brand new plant. And then your question is, yes, you know, to get to from 30 to 60 for the desal system, yeah, absolutely, it will cost you more. But how that compares against the cost of building a brand new plant from A to Z, intake, pretreatment, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what I have in mind here. That the purpose of the 60% is not just to produce water at very high recovery, but is to produce competitive water against the other option, the natural option being building a brand new plant. And that's kind of like, in SWCC, we look at it that way. We'd like to maximize the use of the existing assets because we already paid for them.
For example, in the plant, their capacity about 5,600 meters. They want to add 50%. And they need about 2,500. That's urgent. What we take the one this stage and we build a prime conversion system, which is second stage, a special second stage with thermal sharpers with special membrane, and we could produce 2,700. The cost of water. The cost of water is cost us maybe 25% from the original cost.
Within the same time.
Yeah, with the same.
But the life is paid, what about the life is paid of the building?
I mean, the membrane is the same life of stay. The same.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of configuration because in this high recovery systems, the configuration of the systems that have been offered to the market today is such that you know,
this does work with the seawater cost. Okay. It doesn't mean that it will work in this. It's a system. Just.
Yeah, the bottom line is.
Let me.
Go ahead.
For example, now in our pilot plant in Jaffa, we are building a system now. Considering the discharge, we could obtain up to 63% recovery. We are planning now to move to 70. We'll increase the recovery to 75%. But now another question will come. Because we are concentrating the prime. Yeah. What materials that can resist this type of stability? We have to have special.
Well, we have to create new materials.
Yeah, new materials. Whether plastic or titanium. Yeah. Okay.
Because the option is.
That titanium basically at this we are calling it close to the critical point of the brand. Yeah. Titanium cannot be resistant. Same example is your plant in Japan. They were using the basic they were using the titanium coating. They tried it basically. Of course, now in it become more active. So for me, I think one of my suggestions is that the only material that can be exist.
Yeah, I mean the way
of the mineral quality.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that's where the industry is going. That's why, as Dr. Lombardi said, for example, we've been talking with Isaki, who basically now makes membrane pipes that can withstand the same pressures as these which they can take 600 bars of pressure, so that's their brake pressure. So that's the only thing that can withstand those types of things. That's why you're absolutely right. Solving another problem may cause need for other solutions. I wouldn't call them a problem, but they're solutions.
Higher the concentration?
Yeah.
get the...
Yeah, it's a challenge, and it's a challenge that is not obvious. I mean, there is no obvious solution. You could go to the market and grasp it and say, yeah. So you may, once you get into bright concentration, you have to solve a number of different other problems that don't exist today. But that's okay. That's why the scientists are. They have to figure it out.
Yeah, what
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, we have a case, you may know Dr. Ahmed, they were working about line. It's such a good field of research. I mean, how to get like the material of the pipeline to increase the asset life of the pipeline.
Yeah, to improve to decrease the roughness.
Yeah, because it's something we've been dealing with this. Sure.
Pipelining is, we do that in the States a lot to expand the capacity of the plants by lining them with material.
Because if we take care of that lining, it's going to increase, like in Jebel lining, if it's happening before, it could be increase the lifeline.
Yeah, both life and productivity and conveyance capacity. Yeah, I mean, those are all projects that we have to think about. They're all valuable projects. It's a matter of two things. I mean, can we do it? Second, can we commercialize it here? Rather than waiting for somebody from the US or Europe to come and do it, can we do it ourselves? Can we build an industry around it? And that's one of the criteria. You have an interesting technology, can you build industry around it? Like, membrane, for example, making a membrane is a place you can build industry around because there's a piping, same thing. Lining, piping, same thing. You can build industry around it. So that's...
Localized manufacturers of the parts. Is that
Sorry?
You localize many factories of the parts. Localized manufacturers of the parts. Is that
Sorry?
You localize many factories of the parts. Desalination parts. So I think there is a big possibility. Or all these products, it can be produced in locally.
Yeah. That's the idea. I mean,
we localize 46%.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider the how long time it takes to get spare parts, it's amazing. It takes 6 to 8 months sometimes.
But especially with the 3D printer, I'm thinking that
we have already started now. It's like for small items. We have started now in our workshop. Okay, but what we are looking now.
Look at building
mega parts, for example, for the parts for the high pressure pump. The high pressure pump sometimes twice this door. Okay, too big. And for the intake pump, yes.
Now it's all possible. And the beauty of it is you have also scanners. You can scan anything and then turn it into a 3D model. That's why we're talking about computerization. Basically, the latest developments are to go into digital twin of everything. Basically, creating a digital model of everything that can be then used to do 3D printing. So that becomes one of the deliverables. Like when somebody is designing, in Europe it's like that now. If you go to Spain and you submit a bid, you have to submit a digital twin to your plan. What that means is all the components have to be computerized. Why? Because they can be produced 3D by the user, and also for training purposes. If you have a 3D model of the components, you actually can train people with virtual reality glasses, and that's also something they use. It all flows through the entire system. We don't have that, but we can have it as well. I mean, this is something, computerization and digital twinning of everything really is the way to do 3D printing, training, everything in one shot. We are a little bit in the dark ages right now, but we have to jump that board and go to where the world is going. So thinking about like when we ask for a bid next time, not only ask for 2D drawings, we need 3D drawings and digital twin model of the plant. That's what the guys are asking in Europe. We don't ask any of that. We ask 2D drawings like we asked 60 years ago when I was a young engineer. Well, I was born 60 years ago. I'm 61. I'm not that old. But yeah, I mean the reality.
It's possible to be 1 year old engineer.
Plus minus. Yeah, just graduated from being born. But the point is that, yeah, I mean, as an engineer all my life, 35 years of experience in actually designing plants, we've been doing 2D drawings. And basically the point is we got to stop with that and get into the age where everything is 3D And everything flows from design to O&M manuals to training and to printing, 3D. So basically, that's why people talk about that as being digital twin. You go and bid for a project in Europe now, you are required to provide a digital twin of your plant. So you have to provide the software, and they already have developed certain platforms. The most advanced is actually Siemens, who developed a digital platform, basically software, that allows you to do all this together. It becomes standard like AutoCAD now. AutoCAD was the old way of designing things in 2D drawings. Now you have a digital twin requirement. We don't require any of that. We require stuff that we required 50 years ago. We got to change all that. We got to be, and that's the point to do it. We have to do this because it all is all interconnected. I mean, as people call big data or digital printing, I mean, that really gives you opportunity to do everything completely fully automated if you have it all electronic.
Okay, can we give?
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
We will need your feedback here in this.
Okay. Let me sit there so everybody can.
This is our proposal for structuring the roadmap committees and collecting information and preparing the roadmap itself. As we did it, maybe you have seen it or you have went through it. What we had, well, steering committee, we agreed on it. Everything is almost the same in our structure as according to the American experience, as stated by Dr. Nikolai. Except here, when we go to the consultant, it seems to me the technical expert committee we have and the sectoral groups, these are the consultants. These replace the consultant job, which is the consultant will do the same job as these committees. The technical expert committee, what we know that it might just has 5 to 7 experts. Actually, you are one of them. You are the leader of them. And it's we have 2 other. Okay, we have, as you know, Enrico and Basil, Dr. Basil, in the group, and but we have also other working groups that is serve also under maybe the directions of the steering committee and the technical expert. So the technical expert committee maybe as an advisor, work as an advisor for the steering committee. They do the job. They might do just some of the papers required or background papers required or according to what we want. For example, the roadmap will include the literature review and update of what is the project, what's needed to be developed really in the sector, especially in KSA, and all this work we thought the technical committee will need to consult or help the steering committee to get experts to do some of the job required for the roadmap, develop papers. Maybe it's a long process, okay? The working groups in there, these are maybe they work as a reviewer for these collected information, collected paper that would make the base for the roadmap. And then, the technical committee maybe will be responsible for developing the final draft of the roadmap, and this is with the steering committee combined effort to make at the end develop our roadmap. We have about 3 years for finalizing this. You did it as I've seen for the American roadmap in just 1 year, right? Because you have a consultant should.
Yeah, we have real jobs. Basically, I work with Dr. Al-Moudi on 30 desalination plants in SWC to improve their operations. I'm running all over the place. I don't have the time to write papers. I'm not a scientist. I mean, I'm actually a real engineer working real jobs. So from a perspective of writing papers, just to let you know, none of those efforts
result in writing papers. This is not a technical, this is not a scientific review. This is basically creating a working document to serve the industry to fund and develop projects. So technical expert committees, and also, you know, if you do a survey, you wouldn't imagine how much work it is to chase all this, the people that's supposed to provide you with information and do it. You cannot do it between you know, 2 jobs. It's just a full job on its own. That's why we did it. And also, you know, if you wanted to create that map relatively quickly, it will be the best and easiest way to facilitate the process. That's why in both cases, in the case of Navy, the Department of Energy, and in the case of Water Research Foundation, we do have a consultant that does all this type of technical work that is tremendously time-consuming, but doesn't require somebody like me to be writing, you know, to be calling people, hey, did you return your survey? Hey, you didn't respond to question A. What is your question A? This is done by young engineers, not by a 61-year-old man like me. So my point is, that's actually a very helpful way to go in expediting everything, because it just, otherwise I have to do it in 3 years versus in, you know, 6 months, because I don't just have the time to call people and do that. So, I mean, I'm a strong advocate to consider this kind of a consultant just to expedite the process. And also the fact that all of those guys are senior people. They don't do this for living. I mean, it's not like this is our job. We do this.
I totally agree with you, Dr. Nicola. I totally agree with you on what you are saying. Is the best way, as we proposed earlier, that we can communicate with the consultant. For example, if you care, they can do this type of job, because this need actually full time, okay, for order to send the questionnaires, to gather the information. Okay, this is need a lot of work.
I know. It's
yeah,
headache.
that's not
with the surveys, everything.
Yeah. Whether we give it to Kerry or other consultants. Yeah. That's what we do. We have to review.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the role of the technical committee, to review.
We have to review, and their role is to review the reports. Okay.
And to guide.
Yeah.
And to guide the consultant.
And also, we have also to review the technical expert committee. Okay, we have to review. Yeah, our state committee. This should be the shape. Okay. But none of us, none of the steering committee, none of the technical expert committee to do this work.
I don't want to put the pressure on anyone, either the steering committee or the technical teams or the individuals, even in the center here. I think this is questions mainly to the steering committee. You have seen the proposed setup of Dr. Nicolas, and this is the proposed sitting already developed by Dr. Muhammad and his team, and reviewed by some of our members. I think we need to adjust, if I may, we adjust this sitting to what is fit to us.
Yeah, sure.
More than, I mean, maybe we don't need the technical committee experts. Maybe it's just the steering committee. The steering committee will act in the kind of a technical reviewers, and so it's just like a one layer, and then we just hire the consultants to do these kind of work that we state of the technology, surveys, and maybe, I don't know, I just want to put this in perspective to everybody. So we think, I think maybe it's a further discussion. That's why.
Yes. That's why I presented this actually, so that we can find somehow an approach that how we can shift. Can we shift actually from what we proposed to what Dr. Nicolai proposed? Because I like the way, the idea of consultant to do the job. Because this is really, if an experienced consultant, he will do a better job than what we do. Because in our proposal, we are doing the effort of so many people have supposed to do the job of the consultant.
Can I ask a major question? Can we hire consultants according to the
Yes,
framework
it's
of-
almost the same cost.
There is no, yeah, there is no, there is no constraints.
Yes.
But I think it is within the proposal of Dr. Mohammed Bayouti, because we have a technical expert committee that could help us and produce the survey, and also they might give us the current status of state of art of current desalination system, and we could start from that point. So when Dr. Nikolai gave us the 9 steps.
Just count me out. I don't have the time to be calling people, of 1,000 people in the industry, hey, did you submit your survey? I'm just too old for this. If you volunteer, go for it. But I'm not taking on that
No,
job.
I think mixing the two maybe will weaken the proposal. I think maybe the best is to have everybody review the presentation of Dr. Nicholas, review the setup here, and give the feedback in a very, I would say, rational and what is the constraints. I'm concerned about the constraints, financial constraints. If we could hire a consultant, I think what Dr. Nicholas proposed, in my opinion, is more of practical and can be done within maybe 4 to 5 months. We will have something. We'll have something documented.
We have a workshop, yes,
Yeah.
within 6 months.
We'll have the workshop. It's much better maybe than if we do technical, regional, and then it will be very difficult. And also, what is the paradigms was in my mind is looking for the demand was a very highlighted in the proposal here, while in the proposal, the original proposal of the research, maybe the demand is not even quote-unquote an issue. So we are looking for technology. So let's focus on technology more than the demand itself, and then we support with the demand that they use it for, that this technology where we should go. So instead of going to the demand, the projection of the demand for different sector, no, we go to technology, and we see the technology how to provide a demand maybe in the future. So it's kind of a different perspective, because we know it's going to have a demand in water. Then instead of going, oh, we need a filling gaps of maybe 10 desalination plants or 20 or 50, and instead of saying that, no, we said, okay, we have a technology that will reduce X, W, Y, whatever, and this is the cost of that, and then it will provide the water for agriculture or industrial or municipal. So I think that's what maybe it's more focus. I think that the workshop is giving the focus directions, I would say, to the research itself.
Right. Since we are in open discussion, since we are in open discussion, how could we get the base? The basic that we are starting for the base. Now we are the benchmark with other. For the current technology in Saudi Arabia, we have the specific energy consumption, which is should be 3 kilowatt hour per meter cube. Who will give us this information? The cost of the water produced in Saudi Arabia installation plant. Who will give us this information? The type of energy that being used in desalination plant. This is the information that we are looking for.
That's the state of the industry report.
Yes.
That's the state of the industry report. That's the final.
And also the main important thing, which in my opinion, how much the local content in the desalination plant in Saudi Arabia cannot run. Almost we are producing almost 25% of the total capacity in the desalination, maybe less or more. It's how much the local content.
This pipeline more than about 40%. The chemicals are about 90%. The spare parts are about 46%. I mean, actually, when you talk about local content, it is different from sector to other sectors. For example, when you talk about the chemicals, it is localized here by more than 90%. When you talk about the spare parts, now it's localized more than 46%. When you are talking about the pipelines, for example, for water.
That's what we are need now to put it as start point, and for the roadmap, after 5 years, 10 years, we are trying to increase the local content in the piping or in the spare from 40 to 90, like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I understand.
You are right. You are right. Okay, the roadmap that has to be highlighted.
Actually, the research itself, Dr.
I think Dr. have to have Nikolai? Yes. Dr. Nikolai? They want your presentation back on.
Discussion.
You always win.
Is it on the computer? No, it is. It should be. It is. It is on the main. It was. Yes, it should be here. You see that it says X on the bottom. That's the one. Yeah, extended.
The most, that's it. This one, I think with the.
Yeah, those are the criteria basically to apply, and we added some more which I'll add to the document at the end of the conversation. But yeah.
I think that the presentation says what you are requesting.
Yeah, this is there are two reports. One is the roadmap, which is at the end, but before then, there's the first report is the state of
That's
business
why
report.
I think the consultants or whoever the team is will say, when you say reducing the cost, definitely reducing the cost, but what is the cost?
Yeah.
So that will be answered.
Yeah, in the state of the industry, we have to answer what is the baseline of all this criteria.
The consultants. Yeah. Actually, the consultants.
A source, isn't it?
No. He will give the see the question.
I am here not to answer. I can answer all this question. Because now we are in the workshop.
No, actually.
I mean, the technical committee will provide information to the consultant, for example. If the consultant doesn't know anything, he will go to the technical committee and say, hey, where do I get this information?
Exactly.
One of the slides that you showed, that you are showing the minimum of the energy or the theoretical. After that, you are saying the state of art. And now you are saying the minimum practical. And that's what we are trying to define.
Yeah, so that will be in the state of the industry report. We have to define for every one of those criteria, where do we stand today? What is the best in class? What is the minimum and the theoretical minimum?
And I know that for the United States, I would share my experience with the Department of Energy. When they said, okay, for the feed more than 100,000 ppm, they are targeting now the specific energy consumption, the thermal, less than 30 kilowatt hour thermal per meter cube. And also they're targeting the cost, it should be less than $1.5 per meter cube. And they put this one. And also they defined, they have another category for the small scale, which is they define the small scale less than 220,000 meter cube per day. That will be the cost. And for the large production,
the key is all of the variables here. All the variables should be answered as a basic, as what is the status now today in the kingdom. What is the status? What is the cost? What is the contribution of local contents? How is the liquid discharge? How is the materials is used? All of that should be answered. Definitely, first, the data, as you mentioned, is already in the hand of SWEC and the private company. But that's what the steering committee involvement is to make sure this data is available and correct.
Correct,
Yeah, available and correct. And the consultants usually will collect from different from sources. They will knock the doors, and we will call them if they don't have they have problems with the SWIC. Ahmed will make sure this data is available.
The steering committee
The
is
last
exactly
point,
that
and
purpose,
inshallah, I
to
look
advise.
at the Nizam al-Khair.
Yeah, that's why I call it
We
steering.
have to do it. يعني we beat ourselves in 10 years.
Yeah.
And we have to put ourselves up after 10 years. What is the progress that has been made? And also we have to compete the other, the benchmarks.
That's why it's destructive. Destructive. Yeah. So yeah, that's why it's destructive. So we are looking for more out of the box technology to have and to have something improving the efficiencies, improving the productivity, reducing the energy. So I was all of this. I think we could discuss it more, but I was looking for the presentation of the sitting of the ورا ما تمشي هذه السلايد.
The steps.
Huh?
There is one slide for the steps of the flow.
Oh, okay.
Which one? Okay.
The steps.
No, the roadmap.
Oh, the actual content, the steps of the roadmap?
Yeah.
Just a second. Yeah.
No.
It's focus. One more.
Yes.
Yeah, individual
Yeah.
implementation plan. Yes.
Okay, establishing the steering committee, do you agree this is needed?
Of course, steering is the top.
Ask the unusual question. So, okay. So I think everybody agree with it. This is steering committee needed, right?
Yes.
Do you agree that consultants can facilitate the roadmap?
There are two issues or two concerns with the consultant. First, can we find a professional consultant company in Saudi Arabia who can make this job?
Take the last word, and yeah, there is a consultant that will do.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing, what will be the cooperation between the consultant and the stakeholders? Because he will send the survey to the stakeholders.
Oh, we
are they going to cooperate and give him the data?
No.
Huh?
The consultant is not sending. We are sending. No, the consultant
So-
act prepare. But that we are the owner. It's not a consultant.
I think
Yeah.
I thought if we should, as a committee, to this places and to these stakeholders, I think they'll pay more attention, I guess.
Yeah. No. The owner, the consultant doesn't own anything. He is facilitators.
Yeah.
I thought the consultant is supposed to do all the work, except that you make it easy for him to contact the stakeholders.
Let me tell you about my experience. Let me tell you my experience. The study is done in the Kingdom for groundwater. They need to go to NADIC, to Marahi, to measure the groundwater depth and everything. Okay. What they need from me, they are the consultants who do the modeling, not me, as a minister. So I sent a letter to NADIC in behalf of the ministry. So the ministry asking to provide this kind of data. And then the consultants go with the team and take the measurements and take everything and come back to us. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So the center will act the owner of the research.
Yes.
So they will prepare the name with us, prepare the stakeholders, quote unquote, the questionnaires, and then maybe they need a letter from the center.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then they send it and they follow up with every one of the people that were submitted. If they receive incomplete information, follow up to make sure the information is
Do we need to make, for example, a small, short lunch workshop with them? You just invite all these members from all these stakeholders and ask them to come and then introduce them to your roadmap and then tell them that we need to do this in order to do this. We have this consultant, the consultant will approach you and so on.
Let's think about the implementation plan later, but if they agree that if the consultants can do the jobs of all the baselines that we are looking for, the survey for the issues, and meeting in our behalf everybody, do you see it as a steering committee members?
How many surveys?
Up to now, we are not, maybe.
Yeah, I think the best is for all of us big members is to start with the list that you have, which is like 6 or 7 key, like ministries and others. And every one of us adds, who we think should be participating. Just add a name and institution. And let's make a list. Yeah, long, it doesn't matter how long it is. I mean, in the States we go to 1,000.
I think
the more inclusive we are, the
reach
better.
something like maybe 200, maybe something like that.
The key entities involved in these are.
Yeah, I mean the industry, the minerals, the petrochemicals company, so because we are involved now in mining.
And the steering committee will define the subscriber list.
I think yes.
All of us will put together the list.
I think with the consultants, with the experience of the consultant, because the consultant is not coming from nowhere. He should have done work similar to what we are looking for. Otherwise, we teach somebody from the scratch, and I don't think it's a good idea. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. So we need a consultants that already have the experience, such as the consultants that they mentioned.
Yeah, for example, we used the similar internal goals and establishments, we used A.P. Kearney, who did exactly that. We told them who to contact, what information to extract, what questionnaires they went and collected it, which is a fair amount of effort, realistically it is. But it doesn't require experts in the detail field to be calling back and asking and extracting the information. But at the end, they did that. They also compiled it to summarize everybody's inputs into groups and all that. And the steering committee role is really to guide them. And if they have a question, okay, should I contact Mr. A or B? We as a steering committee says, yeah, contact Mr. A. Or I don't have contact for Mr. B. Okay, here's the contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we guide them.
Usually the steering committee will approve the survey, will approve the names, and they support the consultants to collect the information.
One question to Dr. Nicola. The survey which you are using is only one stage, one survey, or many surveys? I mean,
we usually have one survey that they got a response. The purpose of the survey is to establish what are the key areas where the various participants believe we should focus on research and we should focus on needs. What are the key needs they have? Those needs, we could give them those topics, for example, or and also give them your initial survey, which is a good systematic set of questions for them to say what are their needs, what are their expectations, what are the for example, what are the important targets for them. So we will work on it. I mean, I will show you the survey we used in the States. You have a very good survey. Maybe we'll compile it together. The steering committee will review it, add or remove, and then that will be it. So the purpose is really to reach all stakeholders and to make sure that they have a voice in telling what their concerns are and the issues. The most important is to understand the issues that they need solved. What is it that they need solved today? What is it, for example, if you're asking agriculture, what is it that we need to do to make you get designated water? Is it a price issue? Is it a quality issue? Is it maybe both? Or maybe there are other issues?
Or bring it to a geographic area.
Yeah. We need to know.
I think his questionnaire with your question is, we should give it to the consultants, okay? And they should design the questions.
Yeah, and then they'll get back to
Yes.
steering committee, and steering committee will
We
approve
should
our
do
plan.
their work, okay?
I agree. But yeah, I mean, I think what you started is excellent. We could add a few more things, but at the end, that's to know what is your need. You know, because we want to do this needs survey to get everybody's needs, and that will allow us to do the status report.
Okay.
The timeline for the consultant is to be experienced. So if we assign a consultant to do this job, prepare the survey, our the stakeholders subscribe and give us and compile all the data or responses and present it to the steering committee.
Yes.
How will it be?
Yeah, the actual selection of consultants, in asking for proposals and all that and costs, I would say it will take about 2 months between the time we advertise and we get the responses. Usually expectations for them to respond within 3 to 4 weeks with proposal. Then we can evaluate it, the steering committee or the entire committee can evaluate it and express which we believe is the right, and by consensus we'll decide who that is. And then call them in. This may be a good time for the workshop because as you suggested, if we'd like to get all the stakeholders that will participate in providing information, that may be a good time for a workshop where we introduce the consultant and say, hey, this is Mr. A, our consultant, and you guys will be approached very soon by questionnaire and follow-up questions. Please the goal is we can explain to them what we're trying to achieve so they know where we're coming from. And have them be cooperative with us and knowing that this consultant will be calling them and sending them questionnaires, getting responses, analyzing, asking questions. I think this will be a good time for that introduction.
We'll design the implementation plan again. Just I think
So we have to multiply by 2, and I think it should be in the timeline of the project. And I'm sure that
Yeah, but
actually, I think for myself, I think if we introduce the result of the survey to the stakeholders, usually it's more effective because you see, you get the 2. Already you cover what you call their ambitious view, and then they see the result. And then they will give you the feedback. So you catch the 2 ideas in one of the workshops. So I suggest that is the consultants will do we do the workshops after. But that's an implementation plan. I'm a little bit.
You know, it can work with 1 workshop or 2 workshops. What we have done in the past is we didn't invite the members that will be providing information. We just inform them on behalf of the Water Research Foundation, and in this case on behalf of us, that they're going to get a letter of please be cooperative, and this is the benefit of why we need to be cooperative. And then we invite those guys to the back end, to the actual workshop. But so just to give you a sense of time, let's say 2 months to get consultants. Another, I would say, months for the consultant.
We have to have roadmap for this, okay?
Yeah, that's why
I'm just brainstorming.
Do you remember when I said we should have what we call
A timeline?
A timeline. Yeah, I think timeline is very important to do. And then we do what we call the second element, which is the status of the desalination report.
Yeah, the status.
Yeah. Do you think the status done by the consultants or technical committees?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking about 4.
السؤال عفوا ممكن تكرره؟
The create the state of desalination report.
Yeah. This is the report that establishes the baselines that we discussed and says, okay, based on the reviews, based on the input, there are, let's say, 8 different areas, 8 different topics that the industry wants more development. And on all the 8 topics, here is the state, they would have to do the criteria, baseline criteria, and second, describe for every one of those topics that were identified, what is the state of science today and the state of condition in Saudi Arabia, where we are today with this issue.
So it's similar to Dr. Nicolaris mentioned, that is pressurized under the sea desalinations and thermals and renewable energy and whatever is in the world today, it needs to be reviewed and reports. So we have to have these kind of reports. Do you think the consultants can carry this task?
Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant to really judge this because I don't know what is the condition outside. Do we have a professional consultant? Of course, it's one consultant. If you have the professional consultant, of course, I would refer the consultant to do it because they have a successful experience. He showed us a successful experience in the States. They've been doing it all the time, and there is a trend for this. And I'm still very worried about how we can collect all this information of data through different people within a certain time and review it and do everything within.
Okay. Otherwise, what we can carry this. That's state development reports today, dissemination reports. We can carry this by identify the area today and ask individuals who is well known in their field. For example, you ask X guy in RO, what is the status there? You ask MSF guy.
That's the case we have now. That's the case we are proposing.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just trying to put it in front of everybody. So either بالعربي نستكتب أحد في different area. We ask them to report something like this, or we say, okay, we'll have the consultants, but the consultants will do. The guy who write it is an expert of that field.
And then at the end, we still have to review it. The steering committee will review it, and if we need to change it or expand it or reduce it, I think that will be the prerogative of us. I mean, but if you'd like to just dedicate that to, once we do the survey, have the results, and then have the topics that come out of the survey be assigned to various people with the experts, that's another way to do it.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking that question, because I think, at this stage, you cannot ask the consultants to do something you don't know what is out of their set. Yeah, so
do the survey first.
Yes, you do the survey first, and then you ask. Maybe the ambitious or the one you are the feedback coming maybe is different than what we today in our mind.
Yeah.
So, and I think we could hold this as maybe consultants or individuals.
And we could decide at the time once we see the topics.
Yeah.
That come out of the survey.
But everybody agreed that the survey should be done by a consultant.
That's what
we're talking about.
Yeah.
And at the end, the output of the survey, which will be certain areas of importance or
focus.
Focus. Then at that point, we
Instinctive?
How we approach another consultant or not the same consultant to continue the processing of the roadmap.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're talking.
Yes.
Or we can ask other individuals to prepare documents in these different topics.
What is your feedback?
Exactly. Once we have the topics, we can ask various individuals to take each one topic that is an expert in that topic and write the state of report for this topic. So they'll be explaining what is the current baseline, where is the industry at the present, what are the key issues.
Who is that consultant's firm that then you
Yeah, in the case of Motor Research Foundation, it is American consulting.
What's about that?
Oh, A.T. Kearney? Yeah, A.T. Kearney was the consulting company.
They are professional.
Yeah, they're
I
professional.
They have done something amazing for us. And for teaching, for swimming, what they have done, something's amazing. And they are qualified. They are qualified.
And of course, we as a steering committee do have to guide them. We have to tell them what meetings, what is the scope, what is the format, and then we produce it. And then if we need to expand, sure. I think all of us as experts can contribute, or we could task a particular expert and say, could you expand on this?
Now we're going to receive Dr. Nikolai said he will send us their surveys
which they did as an example?
Sorry?
Your survey?
Oh, yeah. The survey, I can send you the survey questionnaire for the, yes, for the Water Research Foundation, sure. I can send you that information.
Okay, well, review it.
Yeah, I mean,
You see if you add to it or how this works. That's easy to review.
Yeah,
I think we
this
can
point
take
is
our next step from that point.
I think we are talking about a little bit of a higher level. If we are thinking consultants will do, maybe it's much easier for us as a job, because that means they will have like 5 engineers or whatever, how many engineers they are doing, so they might go to the field, identify, talking to people, collecting the information, and definitely if we mix the, I would say, 3 and 4, maybe it's good, but I don't, to be honest, I will hold to 4, because I don't know what is the, but I think that's where Ahmed the feedback. I don't know if we mix the 3 and 4 to the consultants will, at the start will wait until.
well, we have to get, I mean, the approach we take in the States is, we have a market, desalination market. We have to ask the market, like imagine you want to buy milk. Okay, we have to ask you, what are your needs? It has to be this dense, it has to be half, thick or whatever. And that's basically what the survey is. We approach everybody that is with a stake, with an interest in desalination that we believe will be valuable, to tell us what they believe they need to solve their problem, to become more commonly used.
Yeah, and I think if we add something like number 4 instead of the 4, that is, what is the status of the water demand? I think maybe that's why we talk with the, do we talk about the demand first, or we talk about the later? But water demand, I think it's a local expert. Maybe it's either the ministry or related to the ministry can do the regional and water demand.
I think the ministry does already have something.
Yeah, I think they have.
Yeah, they have.
I think water.
We can ask them to incorporate the findings of that water demand report to the state of the if it's done already, yeah.
I think the water demand is very important, because that is definitely will give you where is the area that may be important to us. Maybe agriculture, maybe different, yeah.
But are we talking here now separating the water reuse from desalination? Are we doing this?
That's why,
because this is not what we propose.
That's why I put the water demand now. That's why I'm putting water demand. So I want to see the water demand.
Different from water reuse, water treatments, and from desalination plants and so on.
No, but actually I
for
want
agriculture.
I want to mix this. To be honest, I want to mix this with the water that we use and the desalination, not as a only desalination. That's my aim now with the discussions.
Yes, I mean that will become much wider audience.
Yeah.
And it can be done.
About it, but the first one, it doesn't matter what is the research. Committee is a committee.
Yes.
Okay. Then consultants, I think that can done anything, either desalination or reuse. Okay.
Okay.
Survey, research survey, they can complete this and that. Okay. State of the desalination report, we hold it a little bit as we mentioned before. Then I try to put a water reuse, another water demand. Here, what is the water demand? And this is the ministry, I think, have this water demand. So now we go to the second one, the status, state of the desalination report, state of the reuse of the water treatment report.
That includes conventional water treatment, desalination, and reuse. Yes. But they'll have completely different research needs and completely different.
Yeah, but that's fine.
So that triples that size.
But that's their proposal.
Okay.
That's
Sure.
their proposal.
Okay.
And the proposal, the reuse is one of the elements.
يعني we will have, I think, two roadmaps and two component the master.
The roadmap later will develop this. I'm trying to guide you to a little bit of what you think, but where is the separation? Where the separation will be started. Now it's consultants, okay? Status, water demand. Water demand is all of them. Instead of 4, 3, water demand in the kingdom up to 2030 or 2050 as the ministry did.
But water demands would really cover research needs survey? You
No,
mean
it's not
replacing research needs survey with water demand?
You can, yes, you can.
They are totally different. To me, when you talk about water demand, you talk about water demand. What is the requirement of water at each stage for each field for different people and so on?
It's been done. Yes, it's been done. They have the information.
They have the information, including research needs for water.
No, not research.
Huh?
This is our job.
Ah.
The ministry already finished the water demand,
Okay.
but for drinking purposes. Now they are building the water demand for wastewater. They just start.
أنا يعني دكتور عبد الحكيم طالب الميكروفون لكن أنا أقول research needs survey that is including desalination and treatment and reuse.
Okay.
That is because it doesn't say it's a
3 bucks.
Yeah, it doesn't say desalination.
Yeah.
So then what I'm trying to put here, what we call the water demand.
Between 3 and 4.
Yeah. Then we go to the status desalination report, and maybe treatment and reuse. What is the state of this? Okay. Then we go to the second. Then we start to separate these two.
يعني اللي سوته الوزاره الووتر ديماند باسم السيكتور الريزيدنشال الاجريكلتشر الاندستريال هذا اللي سوته ممتاز الى 2050.
اي بس احنا نبغاه على اساس يكون كانه this is the way of a flow حقه.
سكيماتيك حق
For drinking purposes. يسووه for drinking purposes. Not everything.
Listen, not yet for water use.
No, not
They are
yet.
working.
They are working.
Yeah, but they have a history for agriculture, for example.
Yes.
You can project it. Yeah. You can project it, or you just put it as, we're talking about a 25 billion. So it's not يعني demand high يعني مرة. الفكرة أبو دكتور، الفكرة إنه إحنا بعد أربعة إحنا نحاول نشوف الرول ديماند وشلون نسبريت.
نصل الى الووتر ديماند الاكسبكتد في 2030 2050
مثلا
يعني باتخاذ هذا الريسيرش نيد او البروفنج ديسيجنيشن تكنولوجي حتى نصل للووتر ديماند المطلوب.
صحيح.
وهذا يحتاج ان نعيد النظر حتى في الووتر سبلاي. يعني هذا عشان كذا ندخل فيها الووتر الويست ووتر تريتمنت. مو فقط حنحتاج السالين ووتر اللي هو البحر. فحنشوف افترض انه برضه ديفاين للووتر سبلاي. نسوي مثل ما سوت كي سوت انرجي ميكس. يعني قالت السولار حينتج كذا والويند حينتج كذا والبايو ماس حينتج كذا وايضا الفوسل فيول او الغاز حينتج كذا.
دكتور بس انا احاول تراي اربطه بالبروبوزل اللي موجود. البروبوزل ما قالت الووتر بادجيتنج وبالانس. ترى البروبوزل اذا انت بتدخل في الووتر بادجيتنج اند بالانس انت دخلت في جراوند ووتر موديلنج دخلت في يعني I think we will have a very difficult يعني task and it will not be ended in 3 years. ترى انا اشتغل مع الوزاره من 2004 لين ان اليوم 2020 ستيل المياه الريسورسز قاعده تسوي تقدير لها باستمرار. وهذا اللي يعطيك البروجكشنز حقت المستقبل، وين تبدا تاخذ من جراوند ووتر ولا من ديسالينيشنز ولا من يعني والزملاء اللي بعدي ترى استمروا في نفس العمل. once you are talking about يعني water providing اللي هو التقسيم البروفايل حق كل مدينة you are in تتحول لشغلات. وهذا لا صعب جدا ترى صعب.
Because now we are to be 30. Let me ask you a question. What do you mean by water demand? Water demand, I think we have to specify it. Water demand for drinking water, water demand for water use. We cannot say water demand as it's big word.
Yeah, we are talking about the big word.
That's a separate study.
Thank you.
No. I know your point. No, I know your point. I know your point. We are not talking about water supply.
No.
And again, let me complete my sentence. And we are not saying we are providing the water demand. Dr. Nikolai, we are not going to provide the water demand. We are knowing the water demand. That doesn't mean that you are going to provide it. Sure. Yeah. So we have like 25 billion. But that it doesn't mean that desalination will provide this. But if you want to provide water from reuse, for example, you know there is a market for it. That's it.
What we need to provide.
Is it that's kind of a market study, or I don't understand exactly what will be the outcome of this water demand report? Is it like a market study that says, okay, we have this uses,
yes,
and each use has this much demand?
Exactly. So it's kind of if you produce this out, do you have a market for it?
Sure. Okay.
So exactly,
so it's a market study basically for various users of water.
Exactly.
What is their demand?
It's a water demand. We are not talking about water supply, and we are not going to provide the water supply, and we cannot. We are not, and we cannot ask. Actually.
Well, in the States we call that market demand survey, basically.
Yeah,
where you go to, and and this certainly is in the previous in the NAWI, they looked at all the different demands, like five different users.
No one in water resources will not do it.
Okay, but
any.
Dr. Hamad, and I believe we have to vote for adding this water demand in the roadmap.
That's fine.
Because actually, from one point of view, I don't see it to fit in our scope for this.
Already في original proposal. Yeah, it's already في original proposal. Original proposal already موجودة. Regional water demand.
Main aim at the end is increasing water capacity by 50%. 40 to 50% according to requirements of 2030. يعني انت at the end you want to reach, improve the performance, the capacity of water by 50% with this roadmap.
الroadmap مكتوب فيها regional demand of water demand by regions. موجودة في البروبوزل اللي أرسلت لي. وجروب مطلوب لها to do this. بس أنا أجريت يعني فأطلعت.
بس على العموم مش كل حاجة موجودة في البروبوزل لازم نسويها يعني.
أنا ما عندي مشكلة. شوف دكتور أنا ما عندي مشكلة ترى not sticking to العملية. بس إذا أنت بعدين بتسوي KPIs أنت لازم تطلع وش البيس لاين حقك. فأنت تقول أبغى increase 60%، أبغى أسوي، أبغى أفعل. طيب وشلون بتسوي؟ إذا أنت ما عندك الديماند. وحتى يمكن الحين دخلت من السطوع يقول 60%.
نكمل على الغداء؟ 3:30 الحين.
انا بقول
3:35.
Now we are dreaming and we are preparing for the actually the questionnaire. But can we have actually a look for the previous roadmap, the USA roadmap? As an example.
هم لسه ما خلصوا رود ماب من 10 سنوات عملوا رود ماب.
So we have an
We have
overview
copies of
about
that.
it.
We have a copy.
Beautiful. So we are matching our dream with the requirements which we are.
Yeah, just give us an opening for really how to think about our roadmap. But it's the first time we do it for Saturday. I think
هي
so.
موجودة دكتور تحلية.
I think it's published. It's published, but sometimes if it's published, not everything is published is real.
As a report, yeah, of course, yeah. Maybe Dr. Abdullah can help us in this, and since he was involved really in the...
I can't. We don't do that like that in the States. We consider water reuse and desalination very different topics, very different challenges. We don't mix the two. They're two different things. What you're asking for, if you want to add reuse, we have double it to triple it because they're completely different technologies that we use, completely different targets, completely different portfolios.
I think we can treat with them separate. I think maybe we have
You know, that's how we do it.
We have
now we
reached that
decide to do it collectively together. I'm not saying it's not possible. We just need to double or triple, even double everything because water reuse has its own challenges. It will be a completely different set of projects. It will be completely different topics.
Yes.
So, and it will be completely different people that will be experts.
Of course.
So if you want to do double everything and do it together in parallel, that's okay. But I don't see that being the same mix of people that is experts on one and experts on the other. There are very few people.
I spoke with Dr. Umar. I think we have to also prepare a roadmap for water, wastewater treatment. Yeah,
Wastewater treatment.
this is another roadmap.
Yeah, it has its own technologies, its own challenges, its own targets. Very different. That's why in the States we do
Even though we have intersection.
Yeah, and they do have intersection. I do agree.
We have to.
Those are things that there will be a joint component of it. But you know, if we don't want to do that together, it just needs to be completely different sets. And it will be completely different users. I mean, we will be having two surveys, one for water reuse, one for because I mean, you send to municipalities and they or you know something as that musician and asking what is your water reuse. They would have no clue. They don't need the water. So agriculture would not know what the industrial water reuse is. So they're just different users. I mean, at least it is in the States. Maybe it's not. It's not.
We have the published roadmap for United States about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It does the same thing you've been working on in the past.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There was in 2008. There was a the Bureau of Reclamation created a roadmap, which also discusses general